This week, we're going to continue our educational journey with avoiding costly mistakes in your retirement investments while navigating a low interest rate environment. Welcome back. I'm Telton Hall, a certified financial planner at Advanced Financial Planning in Cedar City, Utah, where our team helps upper middle class and affluent families accomplish their retirement goals. These educational videos have been addressing how different investments and investment vehicles are affected by all-time low interest rates, low Fed fund rates, treasury rates. We've spent some time covering tactical allocations. We'll spend some more time covering strategic investment allocations. And right now, we're in the middle of a dive into index allocations. Let's continue that. Last video, we defined an index as purely a set of rules. It's criteria and math. You take those rules and you apply them to all the investments available. And if they fit into the category created by the rules, then you have the investments that align to the index. Or if you bundle all those investments together, you have an index fund. Last video, we talked about some of the misconceptions and potentially super costly misunderstandings that you may have had around index allocations or index funds. Right now, let's discuss how low interest rate environments, how they affect different indices or different index funds. As always, we're not saying whether these approaches are right or wrong for you. We won't know that until we have a conversation with you to really determine what's in your best interest. But we are trying to give you some really straightforward education to help you make smart decisions. With that said, let's talk about some indexes. The S&P 500. The Barclays Aggregate Bond Index, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the Russell 2000, the Morgan Stanley or MSCI World Index, the Merrill Lynch Global Bond Index. These are all examples of an index. A fund company then takes those in the investments, the stocks or bonds that fit the requirements of the index, and they build a fund that tries to align with the index rules. Those investments are going to act differently in different interest rate environments. Let's take the Bloomberg Barclays U.S. Aggregate Bond Index, often called the AG, which is good because that's a lot shorter. We're going to call it the AG. This is super applicable because a lot of retirees, they've heard this old adage that you should take age 100 minus your current age, and the difference is how much you should have in stocks or stock funds, and the rest should be in bonds. Say you're age 65, then this so-called rule of thumb says that you have 35% in stocks and 65% in bonds or bond funds. So if you're blindly following this rule of thumb, or maybe some do-it-yourself retirement software spits out an allocation like this, it's highly probable that you end up with a big chunk of money in the AG or in something very similar to the AG. So you better understand it, and you better understand it based on this new interest rate world we are in. I'll see if I can help you with that. In 1986, but based on data that was a few years older than that going back into the 70s, the AG started as the Lehman Aggregate Index. Yes, that's the same Lehman that crumbled in 2008. So now it's called the Bloomberg Barclays U.S. Aggregate Bond Index. The concept was to take a measure of all the investment grade, the bonds that you could buy in the U.S. So you would exclude high yield and foreign denominated bonds and municipals, certain residential mortgage-backed stuff, but all the rest of it, you take that and you get this big picture of the US bond market, namely US Treasury, US agency debt, commercial mortgages, you get corporate bonds, and you get asset-backed bonds. This stuff is considered to be generally pretty good quality bonds. Investment grade is the term that we use to describe it. Then you have an index that tracks what percentage of each of those components make up the total ag. So the question is, how has the ag changed in relation to low interest rates? First off, if you look at historicals, the ag has had very few negative years. You'd think that's good, we like that. But now let's put that into context. Do you remember a few videos ago when I taught you the general concept that if interest rates go up, the price or the value of the bonds that you have, they go down? And that the longer the bonds are, that's called duration. So the longer the duration is, the more that they go down if interest rates go up. This concept is simplified by saying for every year that your bond allocation has until the end of its duration, then a 1% increase in interest rates will cause a 1% per year decrease in the value over here. Now, don't bet the farm on the exactness of this formula, but the theory is real. If your bond allocation has a 5-year average duration and interest rates go up 1%, then you need to be prepared for around a 5% decline in your account value over here. But the reverse is also true. This is super important. If interest rates are trending down, then your bond values are going to be getting pushed higher and higher and higher over here. The ag has had very few negative years. Well, let me ask you this. In basic terms, what have interest rates been doing since the ag came into existence? Remember, it started back in late 70s, early 80s. Do you remember what your interest rate was on your first house that you bought during that time period? Oh yeah, you remember. You remember the sticker shock. Well, compare that to a mortgage. Now it's at 2 or 3%. So this is super important. When deciding how much of your 401k or retirement account you want in an aggregate bond fund, the historical returns you see on that bond fund, they have been inflated, sometimes greatly inflated, by an interest rate environment that kept dropping lower and lower and lower. But now, well, in mid-2020, the Fed funds rate is at 0%, 0 to 0.25 technically. So there's no room left for your bonds to get this tailwind from lowering interest rates. So then you say, okay, Delton, based on what you taught me, there's still 2 more components. First, the risk of my bond funds getting really whacked is if they have a longer duration, and then interest rates go up. Good point. Well, interest rates can't hopefully go anywhere but up. So if my duration is getting longer in the AND index, then, at that point, maybe I have a concern. And then second, you'd say, if I'm still getting a good yield, meaning the interest rate that I'm getting paid is still pretty good, then we both might say that it's worth the risk. At that point, I would respond, wowzers, you're getting smart. I probably really would use the word wowzers. I mean, there's some stuff from elementary school you're too good to let go of. So wowzers, you're getting smart. Where did you learn this? Then I'd get serious. I'd say, okay, let's take a quick look at this chart to review that. The blue line is the average duration of the ag. It hung out around 4.5 years back in 2004, but it has been climbing. As of mid-2020s, it's over 6 years now. So that piece of the risk-reward spectrum, it's tilting towards risk right now based on a longer and longer duration. But then you compare the yield. Back in 2004 and 2005, you were making 4.5%, even 5.5% you could, and you had less duration risk. So you can see the green line now, it's getting lower and lower. As of mid-2020, the average yield to maturity on the Barclays is under 1.5%. The interest rate risk, the longer duration risk, the low yield are all make buying into that ag, they make it a much different investment than it has been over the last 30 years. One more thought on this is that the amount of government and government agency debt, it has ballooned. We've all kind of seen that happening. In order for the ag to be an accurate representation of all the investment grade bonds that are out there based on their respective percentages in the market, well, the government and government agency is now a big percentage of what's out there, meaning you have smaller allocations to your corporate and your commercial mortgages, and that US government debt is a really large part of the index. That's what's been happening because it has to reflect the actual debt being issued. The end result is that an index fund aligning with the ag, it's going to be holding a lot of government debt. For example, the iShare fund that aligns with the index, it has almost 40% just in US Treasuries alone. So to wrap up, we have talked about the risks of buying an index fund based on the Barclays Ag, and that it could be a costly mistake to just blindly allocate too much of your retirement funds to that without understanding the potential risk and reward. In a different interest rate environment, maybe you could be a little willy-nilly with this, be a little more freewheeling because interest rates will go down, my bonds will go up. However, in this environment, there is certainly a place for US aggregate bonds, but the critical element is knowing what bonds or which specific bond indices you're in, and be certain to choose the precise bond indices that really align with your needs. We'll get into some of those in future videos. We love providing this education for you. For now, you've learned a lot. Stick with us, you're gonna be a genius, or better yet, let us do the work to help you determine what strategies can help you get on or stay on the right track. We'll talk to you soon.
If this information has been helpful to you, check out our other Telton's Tips videos, or better yet, call our office. You can talk to an advanced financial planning team member like me. Imagine that, a real life human that cares about you and your goals. My name is Caden Keller. I work here as a financial advisor along with Telton and the rest of the team. Here, we take a team approach to caring for our clients because we all know 2 heads are better than 1. So give our office a call, and I or anyone else on the team would be happy to answer a quick question for you or schedule a complimentary retirement planning meeting. There's also a link provided if you would like to learn more about who we are at Advanced Financial Planning or what it is we do for our clients in planning for their retirement. Lastly, the schedule an appointment link will bring up our calendar, and you can choose a time for a complimentary on the phone or an in-person retirement planning meeting. Whichever option you choose, the only mistake is to do nothing and keep working and putting retirement preparation off until you die at your desk. I've seen it time and time again. No matter how good and specialized Telton and I are, when people wait too long to seriously consider their retirement options, they're significantly set back and can damage their retirement. So call, schedule, or click to learn more. You've got nothing to lose, and your future self in retirement has a whole lot to gain.